Chosen one, you revealed your other half, and their jow hit the freaking ground. What if the person who's supposed to complete you has already met you and just doesn't know it yet? What if the moment you finally show up as your full true self, not the shrunken version, not the version who apologizes for existing, someone's entire world tilts on its axis because of it? I want you to really sit with that for a second before you scroll past. Because this isn't some fantasy. This is about a specific kind of moment. The moment where you stop hiding pieces of yourself, and someone standing in front of you realizes, almost too late, exactly what they've been looking at all along. Their jaw hits the ground. Not because you changed, because you finally stopped hiding. Are you ready to become that unmistakable? You've spent so long editing yourself down, haven't you? Trimming the parts of you that felt too much, too intense, too different. Softening your opinions so you wouldn't seem difficult. Hiding your ambition so you wouldn't seem intimidating. Muting your depth because somewhere along the way, someone made you feel like all of you was simply too much for one room to hold. So you've been walking around as maybe 60% of yourself, hoping that's enough to be loved, enough to be chosen, enough to finally feel like you belong somewhere. Have you been quietly shrinking yourself for so long that you've almost forgotten what the full, unfiltered version of you actually looks like? That question is exactly where healing begins today. The version of you that got hidden. Think back to who you were before the world taught you to dim your light. The kid who spoke without filtering every word. The person who loved fiercely without calculating the risk first. The dreamer who believed their ideas actually mattered before someone laughed them into silence. That person didn't disappear. They just went underground, waiting for a moment safe enough to resurface. And here's the truth nobody tells you. The moment you finally let that person breathe again, in front of the right eyes, it doesn't look subtle. It looks like a complete transformation, even though all you really did was stop hiding. What part of yourself have you kept underground for so long that even you forgot it was still alive down there? Why shrinking yourself never actually worked. Here's something worth admitting honestly. Shrinking yourself to be more palatable never actually got you the love you were hoping for. It got you tolerance. It got you people who liked the smaller, safer version of you, which means, deep down, they never actually knew the real one at all. Real connection was never going to come from hiding. It was always going to come from finally being seen, fully, by someone capable of actually receiving all of you instead of just the parts that were convenient. Has shrinking yourself ever actually earned you the depth of love you were secretly hoping for? If the honest answer is no, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because suspense goes even deeper into what happens the moment you finally stop performing smallness. The moment someone sees the real you for the first time. There's a very specific kind of reaction that happens when someone who's only ever seen your edited version suddenly gets a glimpse of the real one. It's not subtle. Their whole posture changes. The conversation slows down. They stop responding on autopilot and actually start paying attention, like they're recalculating everything they thought they understood about you. That reaction isn't random. It's what happens when depth finally meets someone who was only expecting the surface. And once they've seen it, they can't unsee it. The version of you they thought they knew becomes impossible to go back to. Have you ever caught someone looking at you differently? The one time you actually let your guard all the way down. That look was the beginning of something they didn't expect. Why your other half is terrified of this too. Here's something worth understanding about the person capable of truly matching you. They've likely been hiding parts of themselves too. Maybe they've been burned by being fully seen before. Maybe they've learned to protect their depth the same way you learned to protect yours. So when you finally reveal your full self to them, it doesn't just shock them because of who you are. It shocks them because it gives them silent permission to stop hiding too. That's often the real reason their reaction feels so dramatic. You didn't just show them you. You showed them it was safe to be fully themselves in return. If someone showed you their complete, unguarded self today, would you finally feel safe enough to show them yours? The difference between attracting someone and being recognized. There's a difference worth understanding clearly. Attracting someone often happens on the surface: looks, charm, timing, chemistry. Being recognized is different. It happens when someone sees past the surface entirely and responds to the actual substance underneath it. Your mind, your depth, the specific way you move through the world that nobody else quite replicates. Attraction fades. Recognition doesn't, because it was never based on the parts of you that change. It was based on the parts of you that are simply, permanently you. Do you want to be chosen for what you present, or recognized for who you actually are underneath it? If that question just shifted something in you, that's exactly why this series keeps unfolding. Subscribe now, because shows you exactly how to stop performing and start being recognized instead. Why? You've been afraid of being too much. Somewhere along the way, someone probably told you, directly or indirectly, that you were too intense, too emotional, too complicated, too much of something. And instead of questioning whether that person simply couldn't handle your depth, you internalized it as a flaw you needed to fix. But here's the truth. You were never actually too much. You were simply in front of someone who wasn't capable of matching what you carry. That's not your failure. That's just a mismatch of capacity. And it says nothing about your worth. Has someone's inability to handle your depth ever convinced you that the depth itself was the problem? The people who were never meant to see all of you, not everyone in your life is meant to witness your full depth. And that's not a tragedy. It's just how connection works. Some people were only ever meant to know the surface version of you, and that's actually appropriate for the role they play in your life. Not everyone gets access to everything. The mistake isn't withholding depth from people who don't need it. The mistake is withholding it from someone who's actually capable of receiving it, out of fear that they'll react the same way people who couldn't handle it did before. Who in your life do you keep at surface level, out of fear, when they might actually be capable of so much more? What happens the moment you stop hiding? Here's what actually happens the moment you stop editing yourself down. The wrong people quietly fall away, because the performance that kept them around no longer exists. And the right people, the ones actually capable of matching your depth, suddenly become visible in a way they never were before, because you're finally giving them something real to respond to. That's not magic. That's just what happens when you stop wasting your energy managing other people's comfort and start actually existing as yourself. If you stopped hiding starting today, who do you think would finally see you clearly for the first time? You've spent so long shrinking, editing, softening yourself into something more palatable, believing that was the price of being loved. But the love you actually want was never going to come from the smaller version of you. It was always waiting for the real one. Somewhere out there, someone is capable of matching everything you've been hiding. And the moment you finally stop hiding it, their whole understanding of you is going to shift completely, goes deeper into exactly what it looks like to fully step into that unhidden version of yourself, and how to recognize the person capable of truly meeting you there. If this message reached something real in you tonight, don't let it end here. Subscribe now, because part 2 continues exactly where this left off. Stop hiding. Someone's whole world is about to change because of it. Cousin 1. You revealed your other half, and their jaw hit the freaking ground. We talked about the version of you that's been hiding underground. The shrinking, the editing, the moment someone finally sees the real you and can't look away. So today, let's go further. What does it actually take to live as that person permanently, instead of just getting a glimpse of them once and retreating back into hiding? Because revealing your depth once is powerful, but building a life where you never have to hide it again, that's where the real transformation happens. Are you ready to stop visiting your full self and start living there? The problem: here's what tends to happen after that one powerful moment of being fully seen. Fear creeps back in right behind it. You showed someone the real you. They responded exactly the way you hoped, and now there's a quiet panic underneath the joy. What if I can't keep this up? What if the next time I'm not as impressive, as deep, as captivating as I was in that one moment? So people retreat. They go back to managing themselves carefully, back to the edited version, because the unedited version feels too vulnerable to maintain long-term. Have you ever shown someone your full depth once, and then quietly retreated back into a smaller, safer version of yourself afterward? That retreat is exactly what we're addressing today. The why going back into hiding feels safer. It makes sense if you think about it honestly. Hiding was a strategy that protected you for years. It kept you from being rejected for your full self, because your full self was never actually on the table to be rejected. Revealing it, even once, cracks that protection wide open, and the fear of losing that safety net can pull you right back into old patterns. But here's the cost of retreating. The person who saw your depth once now knows it exists. Going back to hiding doesn't erase what they saw. It just confuses them, makes them wonder which version of you is actually real, and slowly erodes the very connection that moment of honesty created. Are you protecting yourself by hiding again? Or are you actually sabotaging the very connection you were hoping to build? The difference between vulnerability and performance. Here's something worth separating clearly. The moment someone's jaw hit the ground wasn't a performance. It wasn't you trying to impress them. It was simply you, unfiltered, existing without the usual layer of self-protection. That's the part that made it powerful. It wasn't curated. It was real. The mistake people make afterward is trying to recreate that moment as a performance, attempting to be deep or impressive on command. But depth isn't a trick you repeat. It's simply what happens naturally when you stop editing yourself. The goal isn't to perform your full self again. The goal is to just keep being it, consistently, without going back into hiding. Are you trying to recreate a moment, or are you finally ready to just keep existing as your full self going forward? If this distinction is landing somewhere real, that's exactly why this series keeps unfolding. Subscribe now, because part 3 goes even deeper into sustaining this version of yourself for good. Why the right person wants all of you, not just the highlight reel. Here's something worth understanding about someone actually capable of matching your depth. They don't just want the one incredible moment where you finally opened up. They want the ordinary days too, the uncertain moments, the version of you that doesn't have it all figured out. Because real connection isn't built on a single impressive reveal. It's built on someone getting to know all of you, consistently, over time. If you only show your depth in rare, dramatic moments and hide the rest, you're still keeping most of yourself protected. The person capable of truly matching you isn't looking for a highlight reel. They're looking for the whole story. Are you willing to let someone see the ordinary parts of your depth too, not just the dramatic ones? The fear of being known completely. Here's a fear worth naming honestly. Being fully known is terrifying, because it means there's nowhere left to hide if things go wrong. If someone only knows the edited version of you, rejection only touches the edited version. But if someone knows all of you, rejection would touch everything. And that vulnerability can feel unbearable to risk, but consider the flip side. If someone accepts the edited version, you never actually know if they'd accept the real one. The only way to know if you're truly loved is to let yourself be truly known. Anything less is just a guess, dressed up as a relationship. Would you rather be loved for a version of yourself that isn't fully real, or risk everything to be loved for who you actually are? How to tell if someone can actually handle your depth. Not everyone who reacts with amazement in one moment is actually capable of sustaining a relationship with your full depth. Some people are drawn to intensity in short bursts, but can't handle it as a daily reality. The real test isn't their reaction the first time they see you fully. It's whether they stay curious, engaged, and steady the 10th time, the 50th time, the 1000th ordinary Tuesday. Watch for consistency, not just intensity. Someone who can handle your depth doesn't just admire it in dramatic moments. They make space for it in quiet ones too. Is the person who was amazed by you once also someone who shows up consistently for your depth on the ordinary days? If this question matters to you right now, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because suspense goes deeper into recognizing who's actually capable of staying. Letting go of people who only wanted the surface. Here's something that needs to be said clearly. Some people are going to prefer the smaller, safer, edited version of you, and once you stop offering that version, they're going to drift away. That's not a loss worth mourning for long. It simply means they were never actually connected to you. They were connected to the performance you used to give them. Letting those people go isn't rejection. It's clarification. It shows you clearly who was actually invested in you versus who was only invested in the convenient version of you they were used to managing. Who in your life might quietly fade away once you stop performing smallness for them? And are you actually okay with that? Building a life where hiding isn't necessary anymore. Here's the real goal, beyond any single dramatic moment. Building a life surrounded by people where hiding simply isn't necessary anymore. Where your depth isn't a secret weapon you reveal occasionally for effect, but just the normal, everyday way you exist, met by people capable of receiving it without flinching. That kind of life doesn't happen by accident. It happens by consistently choosing honesty over performance, depth over convenience, and connection over comfort, one interaction at a time. What would your life actually look like if hiding simply wasn't part of your daily existence anymore? Truth, for today the version of you that made someone's jaw hit the ground wasn't a special performance you pulled out for a rare occasion. It was simply you, without the usual filter. And the goal now isn't to recreate that moment. It's to stop filtering permanently, so that version of you becomes the only version anyone ever gets to see. That's not exhausting. That's actually restful, because performing a smaller version of yourself was always the exhausting part. If you never had to hide again, starting today, how much lighter would your life actually feel? You've walked through the fear of sustaining your depth, the difference between performance and authenticity, and the courage it takes to let go of people who only ever wanted your edited version. The real you was never meant to be a rare reveal. It was meant to be your everyday reality. There's more ahead. This video goes into how to fully step into this identity for good, and how to recognize the person capable of standing beside the whole, unfiltered version of you for the long run. If this message is helping you see yourself more clearly, subscribe now, because this video continues exactly where this left off. Stop hiding. This is who you actually are. Pivoted toward exploring genuine connection versus infatuation dynamics. Pivoted toward exploring genuine connection versus infatuation dynamics. This is real, not just infatuation. What if the intensity you're feeling right now isn't actually love? It's just your nervous system confusing chaos for chemistry. What if the very thing convincing you this is the one is the exact same feeling that's fooled you before? I need you to be honest with yourself for the next few minutes, because this question matters more than almost anything else in your search for connection. How do you actually know the difference between something real and something that just feels real in the moment? Are you ready to find out which one you're actually standing in? You've felt that rush before, haven't you? The racing heart, the constant thinking about them, the feeling like you finally found something that makes sense after so much confusion. And in the moment, it feels undeniable. It feels like proof, but here's the quiet fear underneath all that excitement. What if you're wrong again? What if this intensity is just another version of a pattern you've lived through before, dressed up differently, feeling different enough to fool you one more time? Have you ever felt so certain about a connection, only to look back later and realize the certainty itself was the illusion? That fear is exactly what we're untangling today. Why intensity feels like proof, but isn't. Here's something your body doesn't tell you honestly. Intensity and rightness are not the same sensation, even though they feel almost identical in the moment. Your nervous system reacts to uncertainty, inconsistency, and unpredictability with the same racing heartbeat and obsessive thinking that it reacts to genuine, deep connection. That's why anxious, unstable relationships can feel just as consuming, sometimes more consuming, than healthy ones. So when something feels overwhelming, all-consuming, impossible to stop thinking about, that's not automatically evidence it's real. Sometimes it's just evidence that your nervous system is activated, which can happen for very different reasons than actual compatibility. Has the most intense connection you've ever felt actually been the healthiest one, or just the most unpredictable? The difference between being chose and being chased infatuation often thrives on uncertainty. The not knowing if they'll text back, the wondering where you stand, the small crumbs of attention that keep you hooked and reaching for more. Real connection doesn't need that uncertainty to stay interesting. It's actually calmer than infatuation, even though it can still be deeply passionate. If most of your emotional energy is spent wondering where you stand, that's usually infatuation. If your emotional energy is spent building something together, with clarity about where you stand, that's usually the real thing. Are you spending more energy wondering about this connection, or actually building something within it? If this distinction is landing somewhere real for you, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because it goes even deeper into recognizing real depth versus performed depth, which why real connection feels like relief, not chows. Here's something almost nobody tells you. When you finally find the real thing, it often feels less like fireworks and more like exhaling. Less like a roller coaster and more like finally sitting down after being on your feet for years. It's calm in a way that surprises people who are used to mistaking chaos for chemistry. That doesn't mean real love is boring. It means real love doesn't require anxiety to feel alive. If a connection constantly leaves you unsettled, unsure, or emotionally exhausted, that's worth examining honestly, no matter how intensely you feel it. Does this connection feel like relief, like you can finally exhale, or does it feel like constant emotional whiplash? The sign most people miss. Consistency over time. Infatuation is loudest at the beginning and often fades or becomes unstable as time passes. Real connection tends to work the opposite way. It might start quieter, but it deepens and stabilizes the longer you're in it. If someone was intensely attentive at first and has since become inconsistent, that inconsistency is more telling than how intense things felt in month one. Consistency over time is one of the most reliable signs of something real. Not the fireworks at the start, but whether those fireworks evolved into something steady or fizzled into confusion and mixed signals. Has this connection actually grown more stable over time, or has the intensity simply shifted into uncertainty? If this is resonating with your current situation, that's exactly why this series keeps unfolding. Subscribe now, because suspense dives deeper into what real depth actually looks like day to day. Why your past patterns might be lying to you right now. If you've spent years drawn to unstable, unpredictable, or emotionally unavailable people, your body has likely learned to associate that specific kind of tension with attraction. That means healthy, stable, secure connection can actually feel unfamiliar, even boring at first. Not because it's wrong, but because your nervous system isn't used to peace feeling like desire. This is one of the cruelest tricks of old patterns. Sometimes the right person feels less exciting initially, simply because you're not used to calm. Give it time before you dismiss peace as lack of chemistry. Have you ever mistaken calm, healthy connection for a lack of spark, simply because your body wasn't used to peace yet? The question that cuts through the confusion. Here's a question that tends to reveal more truth than almost anything else. If all the excitement, all the chemistry, all the intensity disappeared tomorrow, would you still choose this person based on how they treat you, how they show up, how consistent their character actually is? Infatuation often can't survive that question, because it was built on feeling rather than substance. Real connection survives it easily, because it was never just about the feeling in the first place. It was about who they actually are underneath the excitement. If you stripped away the intensity completely, would this connection still hold up on character alone? Why real connection doesn't tie you to shrink or chase. This ties directly back into everything this series has already covered. If you find yourself editing yourself down, chasing their attention, or performing a smaller version of you to keep them interested, that's a sign of infatuation, not real compatibility. Real connection is where you get to be fully yourself, without earning basic respect or consistent attention through performance. The person capable of truly matching your depth doesn't require you to chase them to stay interested. They show up, consistently, without needing to be chased at all. Are you shrinking or chasing to keep this connection alive? Or does it simply exist steadily, without needing to be earned constantly? If this hits somewhere real, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because suspense continues building this exact kind of clarity. The final truth for today: real connection and infatuation can feel remarkably similar in the beginning, which is exactly why so many people confuse them. But time reveals the difference clearly. Infatuation burns bright and unstable. Real connection burns steady and grows warmer, not colder, the longer it exists. You deserve to know the difference, not guess at it. And now, with these questions in hand, you have a way to actually check, not just feel, but verify, whether what you're standing in is real, based on everything we just walked through. What does your honest gut tell you about the connection you're standing in right now? You've learned something today that most people never take the time to examine honestly: the difference between the feeling of intensity and the reality of genuine connection. That clarity is going to protect you from confusion that used to cost you time, energy, and heartbreak. You don't have to guess anymore. You have real questions now, real signs to check against, real understanding of what actually lasts versus what just feels loud in the moment. There's more ahead. Part 5 goes into what happens once you've confirmed this is real, how to deepen something genuine without letting old fears sabotage it. If this message brought clarity to something you've been confused about, subscribe now, because Part 5 continues exactly where this left off. You know the difference now. Trust what you see, not just what you feel. Across this journey, we've talked about the hidden version of you finally being seen, the courage to keep living unfiltered, the quiet, ordinary depth that builds something lasting, and the difference between real connection and intensity that only feels real. Today, we bring it all together and answer the last question. Once you've found something real, and you know it's real, how do you actually protect it from the fears that could quietly destroy it? Because knowing something is genuine is one thing. Trusting it enough to fully let it grow is a different kind of courage entirely. Are you ready to finish this story? Here's what tends to happen once you finally confirm something is real. Instead of relaxing into it, a new anxiety shows up. You start waiting for it to prove itself wrong. You start looking for the crack that will confirm your old fear that good things don't last for you. Every small disagreement starts to feel like evidence the whole thing is collapsing. That's not because the connection is actually unstable. It's because you're not used to trusting something that isn't falling apart. Have you ever found something genuinely good and immediately started watching for the moment it would prove itself false? That watching is exactly what we're releasing today. Why you keep texting something that's already proven itself. If you've spent years choosing unstable connections, part of you might not fully trust stability, even once you've found it. So you test it. You pick small fights to see if they'll stay. You pull away to see if they'll notice. You wait for reasons to leave before they can leave you first. But every test you run on something real slowly wears it down. Not because the connection is weak, but because nobody can survive being treated like a suspect indefinitely, no matter how patient they are. Are you testing this connection because it's actually unstable, or because you're not used to trusting something that finally isn't? Letting go of the old story that good things don't last somewhere along the way. You might have built a quiet belief that good things are temporary for you specifically. That story made sense once, based on real experiences. But if you carry that story into this connection, you'll unconsciously look for evidence to confirm it, even when the evidence isn't actually there. You get to rewrite that story now. Not because you're pretending the past didn't happen, but because this chapter of your life has already proven itself different. If you're willing to actually look at it clearly, instead of through the lens of old pain. What old story about good things not lasting are you still carrying into a present that has already proven otherwise? If this is landing somewhere real in you, this is exactly why this series was written. Subscribe now, because there's more waiting for whenever your next chapter needs this kind of clarity. The courage it takes to fully wreak something good. Here's something worth naming honestly. Receiving genuine love requires its own kind of bravery, different from the bravery it took to survive everything before it. It's the courage to stop bracing, the courage to actually believe you're allowed to have this, the courage to let someone love the whole, unfiltered version of you without waiting for the catch. That courage doesn't arrive automatically just because you found the right person. It's a choice you make, repeatedly, especially on the days old fear tries to convince you otherwise. Are you fully receiving this connection, or are you still holding part of yourself back, just in case? What it means that their jaw hit the ground. Come back for a moment to where this whole story began. The moment someone saw the real you and couldn't look away. That moment wasn't just about them. It was proof that you are, in fact, someone worth being fully seen. Worth being chosen, not for a curated version of yourself, but for everything underneath it. That proof doesn't expire. It doesn't depend on this specific relationship succeeding or failing. It's simply true now, permanently, about who you are and what you're capable of inspiring in someone who's actually paying attention. Now that you know you're capable of that kind of impact, how does that change the way you see your own worth going forward? You don't need to earn this anymore at the start of this journey. Some part of you might have believed you had to keep proving your worth to deserve this kind of connection. That belief can quietly follow you, even after you've found something real, making you feel like you have to keep performing to keep it. Here's the truth, you don't have to earn this anymore. You already showed up as yourself, fully, and it was enough. It's still enough. The proving phase is over. What's left is simply living together as the people you both actually are. Can you release the need to keep earning something that's already yours? If this truth is settling into you right now, that's exactly why this series exists. Subscribe now, because more of these messages are waiting for whatever comes next in your story. What you carry forward from this entire journey as this series closes, you're not walking away with just one lesson. You're walking away with an entire new understanding of yourself. That hiding never actually protected you. That being fully seen changes everything. That real connection feels calmer than infatuation ever could. And that you are allowed to fully receive good things without waiting for them to fall apart. None of that leaves you when this message ends. It's part of you now, shaping every connection you build from here forward, whether it's this one or the ones still ahead of you. Which of these truths do you think you'll need to remember most, moving forward? The person you've become through this entire story. You are not the same person who used to shrink, hide, and edit yourself down into something smaller and safer. You are someone now who understands the cost of hiding and the power of being fully known. Someone who can tell the difference between chaos and genuine connection. Someone brave enough to receive love instead of just chasing it. That growth is permanent. It doesn't disappear once this particular story settles into something quiet and stable. It becomes the foundation for everything you build from here. Can you see how far you've actually come from the person who first started hiding to the person standing here now? The final truth: you were never meant to live small. The moment someone's jaw hit the ground wasn't an accident or a performance. It was simply the truth of who you are, finally allowed to exist without apology. And now that you know what it feels like to be fully seen, fully known, and genuinely chosen, there's no version of your future that requires you to go back into hiding, whatever comes next. This connection deepening, or a new one still waiting to find you, you now carry something that can't be taken away. The knowledge that you were always enough, exactly as you are, without editing, without shrinking, without hiding. If everything in this journey was leading you here, to finally believe that about yourself completely, are you ready to carry that truth forward for good? Series. Finally, you've walked through this entire journey. From the hidden version of you finally being revealed, through the courage of staying visible, through learning to tell real connection from mere intensity, to finally trusting yourself enough to receive something genuine, without bracing for it to end. You were never too much. You were never broken. You were simply waiting to stop hiding. And now you know exactly what that costs, and exactly what it gives back. If this series meant something real to you, don't let it end here. Subscribe now, because there's always another message waiting for exactly the moment you need it most. And this channel isn't finished showing up for you yet. Stop hiding. Stay real. Stay whole. You were always enough. And now you finally know it.